morning and welcome. This is Tampa Home Talk, and welcome to another 2 hours this Friday morning. And Leo and Adam are both here in the studio this morning.
It's a miracle. Life is good. I can breathe again.
I know,
it's
and
awesome.
You're here before the bell even came in. Look at there.
It's a start of hurricane season miracle.
Maybe that's why he's here. He's excited to talk about hurricanes.
Yeah.
With Leo.
Yeah, those little things that we get every summer, you know.
So, hurricane season officially kicked off
Last
June
week.
1st.
Yep. Yeah.
But before we get into that fun stuff that I know will hijack the entire hour.
I have to say, I need to say a correction. I gave bad information about 3 weeks ago on the air.
Uh-oh.
What was that?
Remember when I said what the average price of a chimney was?
Yes.
And it was free because it was on the house?
Yes. Got it.
I actually have to say I was wrong.
Okay.
It's really expensive.
Oh, you had to price one out, I take?
It's through the roof.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Oh, I like that one.
And
That
the
was a
puns
good start.
continue.
That was a good start. I like that. Thank you, Lisa.
All right. Now we're all awake.
Man, he had me going too. I've never seen him admit him being wrong either. So that
I know. We're waiting for this punchline on this one. All right. So the number of sales, I think this really has to do with a little bit of that holiday gap and stuff in there. It'll be interesting to see because look how the numbers are. So last week, the number of new home listings that were on the market, we had 716 active. This week, we're at 759. And
stable, right?
yeah, and the number of sold listings looks like it's down a smidge because it's been right at 1,054, and this week it's coming in at 903. So it's down a little, but then if you look at the pendings, we were at 1051 last week, and this week we're coming in at a whopping 1,278.
Yeah.
And that actually makes sense because if you look at last week, pendings were lower. So I would expect solds to be lower the week
Correct.
after pendings were lower. So it's still trending.
It's not a week timeline.
Yeah, but I would still expect it to do that.
Yeah, so we could see these numbers do that a little bit, but there's no indicators yet that there's any type of sharp slowdown, which we've completely been, everyone is asking about. A lot of the locals, it's interesting. We get people that come here from everywhere, right? And their perspective is, well, real estate's on sale. It's amazing here. You guys have been open. You don't have any snow. Like, they have all these reasons why they love Tampa. There's never a shortage of stuff to do here or see.
We're going to give them a reason here in a
I've lived here my whole life, and there's still things I haven't seen.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, like, the locals keep thinking that it's going to go the other way, and there's going to be a dip. At some point, well, they actually think there's going to be a crash.
I don't think there's going to be a crash, but there has to be a dip
There
coming.
definitely has to be a dip.
There will definitely be a point where I can put a house on the market and not get $20,000+ over ask offers in within a day. There has to be a time when that's coming.
Yeah, for sure, right? What goes up has to come down. We're way overdue for a correction. No doubt about any of that. I think the things that will start to slowly tick and make the change is going to be the interest rates. But this goes to what I've always said is if you don't own, you're priced completely out of the market. So even though some people are complaining about the fact that they think, it's unaffordable, it's this, it's that, it's gone up. It has gone up. But what if Tampa's been on sale, right, for all these years?
Well, I was going to ask you that. So what is the so you say, we're bound for a dip or what have you. What happened because you always go to San Diego, right? That's your big reference point when it comes to.
I think it's a good comparative city. That's why I use it.
So we don't have a good wine country like they do?
They're pretty far.
They're pretty far. They're the desert.
North. They're south.
But I guess my question is, so what happened there, right? Obviously, they had something like this going on whenever.
Well, they crashed like everybody else.
Okay, but they just kind of shorter
crash. But now,
pushed through.
Well, let me give you an example. I'm in a lot of these private realtor groups, right? And I see different things they're saying. And one of the people here locally was complaining about how they went 20,000 above asking. I've got one today that went 50 above asking to win. Okay. And
any of those letters, those compassion letters?
We can't take them. I actually have to strip the stuff. I have to strip the stuff out of them and look for anything that's a HUD violation. I can't present it to the seller.
So maybe brief recap on what a compassion letter is.
So it's if if it mentions anything of the HUD protected housing classes, we cannot use it, present it, involve it in the real estate transaction. So that's like race, religion, sex, color, marital status, and there's one more. Which one am I forgetting? There's one more. I can't remember.
Health.
If you Google it, it comes right up.
Family.
I said familia status.
Oh.
There's another one. There's 7. Anyway, if anything in the letter, including a photo, which would violate probably familia and
all
sexual
of them, right?
status, we can't use it. So it's terrible, but it is what it is. So what I'll do is I'll usually pick out the parts of, especially if it's just a really great letter and they know they love the house and the offer's strong, I'll pull out the pieces that I can share.
So question for you. Could you send a very, very, very simplified letter that says, my dog will like this yard, and send a picture of the pup?
You
Would
can
that
say,
work?
you can
a
say,
cute dog would
That's
really
familia.
but you can also say anything you want to say about the house. And so that's what we tell people is if you want to write a letter, keep it all about the house. The minute you start talking about your family, your children, your husband, your wife.
Is a dog? I mean, my dog is part of my family, but
Yes.
as far as HUD is concerned, is a dog part of the family?
Who knows? Anything could be argued by an attorney, right? I would say no, but who knows? And it's possible.
Speaking of anything being argued by an attorney, we should have a business law attorney on at 9
We
o'clock.
should.
Yeah, so that'll be a fun hour as well, right behind hurricane season.
What if
here.
the dog signs it from Barkley? I would love
With the paw print?
I would love this
Barkley
yard.
stamped.
Yeah, just get your dog to just walk in an ink pad and then walk on the paper.
I guess you could, and that might,
Because
might
Barkley
work.
sent the letter. I didn't send the letter,
Yeah.
right?
Well, we've had crazy things we've seen in this market, like literally, like things that we're not telling people to do, but like, people
Others are.
Well, they're baking. The buyers are like baking cupcakes and taking it by to the seller, going, "Hey."
If dogs can get elected to mayor offices in the 2020 election, I'm pretty sure they can sign contracts.
I think that's what I would do. Send a picture of the dog.
Well, I don't know. I just know
You're smiling
that-
like you've gotten a dog picture before.
Well, I've seen everything and nothing surprises me. How's that?
for the people that will watch this on YouTube later, they're gonna see the you're like, ooh.
I don't have all the answers, but like we're keeping most of the letters
Were the
out.
cupcakes good?
I don't know. I don't know. But I tell you, we did have to dive into a contract this week, in depth, literally, and boil down to one word and the definition of that one word. Because I had a seller that had a plumbing leak in the cabana bath, and it ruined part of the flooring in the kitchen, and we couldn't get an exact match. And yeah, that was interesting. We'll talk about that another time because that property will be closed by then, and that attorney probably is going to join us in the studio.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so I told him, I said, we should just break apart a FAR bar. And, as I was rereading that provisions that we don't use every day in the contracts, but I know are there, I was like, there really should be some additional language in here as it relates to the time period for closing, as it relates to materials that are not available. Think about that after COVID, how much stuff is not available. After time, you can't get an exact match on things.
For those listening, by the way, explain FAR bar to them. Not everybody would know what that is.
So the FAR bar contract is the one that pretty much every agent here in the state of Florida, except for if you get to Miami, they're like the Wild West down there.
Yeah.
Most associations and agents in the state of Florida use the FAR bar, which is a contract put together by the Florida Association of Realtors and the Florida Bar. So it's a very good contract with very good language. And the reason why we like it is it's very charge neutral, meaning it's very fair to the buyer and the seller. Would you agree? You're pretty familiar with those contracts.
Yeah, I mean, they are pretty neutral, and
Yeah.
they're pretty fair to both parties. They've got the clauses, and as long as you fill it out correctly. I mean, I like the fact that the state of Florida recognizes the need for having certain standard contracts that non-lawyers can do. Because,
Right.
I mean, if you don't
We're
have...
not an attorney state, which is why it makes sense to have a contract prepared by attorneys and real estate agents. There's still some language missing. Like people like me that sell a lot of real estate that are in the day-to-day grind, we see all those clauses because we see the stuff that comes up that when we've read and reread and dissected the contract, even with an attorney, we see those holes in the contract. So it's usually people like me that suggest additional language based on the scenario to send to them when they make revisions. So the last revision we had, I think, was 2019. So we're probably about due for another one, especially being COVID. I mean, there's a lot of what happens if materials are not available and you have to restore something, right? That's the word we had to go to.
That's happening. Because I filed a claim with my home warranty company over a month ago, and I'm still waiting on parts for my fridge.
What happens if you're waiting to close? I mean, that's what happened in this scenario. So it gets very dicey, and there's not enough language in a couple of those provisions, if you ask me. But this is Tampa Home Talk, and we'll talk about that in a couple weeks. We'll be back.
Welcome home, Tampa Home Talk, the exciting hour on how to prepare your house for a hurricane by Leo Kane from Beryl Engineering and Adam Talley from Talley Insurance.
Yes, prepare by getting insurance. Start there.
And flood insurance, which takes a month.
And flood insurance, yes.
So it's interesting. We're expected to have an above average number of storms. You've been saying this for a while.
Well, especially we had the solar flare a month ago, so that's gonna jumpstart our hurricane season. We've had an unusually cold winter followed by an unusually dry spring, so we're here. We're raring up for a good hurricane season.
So do you think we're going to run a lot of the I'm looking at this list. Okay, hold on. I'll come back to this. Do you think we're going to run a lot of these folks that are moving from the Northeast and these other areas out with the storms? Think it will scare them?
I think they're
a handful.
Some of them, yeah. I mean, listen. I had a guy he was a truck driver from up north, and he moved down about 4 or 5, and he was freaking out when hurricane season. He's like, I don't know. But guess where that guy still lives? Right here in Riverview, because I think they'll get over it. It'll take one season.
I think
it's who's your friends, right? Like who are your friends, and like what are you doing like when there's a storm that's coming through?
Right.
Because if you're hanging out like having a hurricane party, you probably don't care about the hurricane.
Right. I think people in Florida underestimate hurricanes. I think northerners that come here underestimate the true power of a hurricane because Tampa really hasn't had a direct hit. Even when Irma came through in 2017, it really wasn't a direct hit.
Yeah, it went south.
So, I mean, I think people downplay the true impacts of hurricanes. I think what scares people here are sinkholes. The word sinkhole scares people. But the word hurricane really doesn't scare people here. You hear about hurricane parties. You hear about all this fun stuff. There's serious storms. You need to prepare.
Yeah.
Especially, the biggest thing I would say right now is plywood's usually hard to get.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
That's usually hard to get, like the week of a storm, trying to get plywood or particle board. Anything to shutter your windows. This year, it's especially going to be difficult to get because we have a shortage of it to begin with.
Yeah. Well, so when it comes to that stuff, now a lot of the new houses are being built where the shutters are included, right?
Yeah,
well, they have to by code, right?
They have to have some kind of debris protection. But I know, like, every time I've been to a home show recently, I'd say a third of the vendors there are all hurricane shutters. Either they're doing Kevlar or screening or metal shutters that go after the fact. But like a third of the companies at these trade home shows now are hurricane shutters, and the other third is massage chairs.
That's funny.
So I was laughing and interrupted myself in that last thought looking at this list. Okay.
Oh, the names?
So, well, here's the thing. So, like, I'm looking at this list. So, of course, my eyes go straight down to K, right? Because Katrina's a ripley storm. Never going to see it again. But look what's on the list this year. We have Kate. So Kate is like this little hurricane agent at my office with red hair like me. So we'll see what happens when Kate rolls around. And the other one I'm worried about is Nicholas.
Oh, yeah?
We'll see.
Why Nicholas?
Because that's my son, and
No.
We'll see.
Oh, boy, that'll be a big bad one.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, this is the same list from 6 years ago.
They just replace the big ones?
Yeah, so that's what they do. It's a rotating. There are 6 lists that they rotate, and every year it's boy, girl, or girl, boy, and that rotates. And then when they retire a storm, as in a storm has caused so much damage that insurance companies now refer to it by name, when it's retired, they didn't replace the name with something else.
What? So on the retiring thing, what's the threshold, do you think?
Basically, they meet after the hurricane season to decide, was this storm catastrophic enough to stand on its own for future references.
I think they do it based on the amount of damage and the number of claims. I don't know what the number is.
Because you can have a Category 1, but like what we were talking about it last week, right, where you had the storm that parked itself over Houston for 5 days. I mean,
that
can do a lot of damage.
Yeah. I mean, it'll do the damage even if it doesn't have the wind associated with it. So
yeah, it's just about dollars, and then they meet to retire storms, and they cycle names in and out. And you can tell over time which kind of what has been cycled in and out. If it sounds like a really old biblical name, it's probably one of the original names. And if it sounds more modern,
like Henri, are we gonna? Is that gonna be Henry, or are we gonna pronounce it Henri because it seems a little French? You know?
Yeah, that's a replacement storm.
They had a lot of French names in there this time. They got Odette. They got
Odette's a replacement storm as well. So I mean, you've got your replacement storms, but I mean, like your Bill and Claudette.
Let's run
and
through the list.
Danny.
So is it Anna or Anna?
Well,
Anna,
I would
right?
think it would be Anna because we also have an Elsa in there for an E. So you got to get the Frozen crowd all hyped up.
I totally missed that. Look at that. All right, run through the list, Leah. What do we got?
Anna, which we already had, or Anna. Bill, Claudette. Danny, Elsa, replacement storm. Fred. Grace, Henri.
There we go. Attaboy.
Ida. I don't know if Ida's an original or a replacement.
That sounds like an old one.
Yes.
Julian.
I don't know an Ida that's under like 80 years old. So.
Kate, Larry, Mindy, Nicholas, Odette, Peter, Rose, Sam. You can tell those are the originals. Teresa, Victor, and Wanda.
You know,
I feel like Rose is going to be. I'll put, if we're putting money on big ones, I'd put my money on Rose.
Hurricane
I'm
Rose.
betting on Kate and Nicholas.
I think Rose is going to be a heavy hitter.
My grandma was Rose.
Do you think we're going to get as far as Wanda?
Oh yeah.
Well, we're saying we're going to be pretty active, but not as active as last year. Last year was the largest storm of record since what, 2005?
We went to Creek Alpha.
Yeah,
2005.
We got all the way to Iota, I thought.
Yeah, which was 2 storms past the 2005 season, which was the largest one before it. So
yeah, 04 and 05, we got hammered with hurricanes.
We did, but 05.
04 got hammered. Florida specifically got pounded.
Florida, the good thing with Florida after 05, 06, whenever like we
04, 05.
Yeah.
04, 05.
Well, but after that we had almost
Nothing
10 years of nothing hitting the state, nothing serious hitting the state.
So back
which is what
then,
insurance carriers just
back then hurricanes were predominantly impacted by the solar depolarization. So once every 12 years, the sun demagnetizes and shifts polarity, which causes flares. So the peak of solar flare season is supposed to be 2025. So 2025 is supposed to be a nice hurricane season for us as well.
So what happens in a solar flare season?
So what happens is you get a solar flare. So the sun is a big ball of fire. And have you ever looked at a big campfire and occasionally you get this little thing that just sparks up and goes off? Well, that's a solar flare. And that causes an intense radiation and intense heat comes to our planet. Basically, airline pilots, airline stewardesses, they're more prone to get certain types of cancer because they're more prone to radiation.
Because they're closer to the sun.
Closer to the sun, further away from the atmosphere. So along those lines, when we have a solar flare, the Earth gets a little bit hotter. And as we all know, hurricanes, and I've said this over the past 5 years, they are cooling engines. So the hotter the Earth gets, the more vicious our hurricanes will become. So when we have this solar flare, our water is warmer. These hurricanes become more intense to help cool them down.
Now
the white roofs are starting to sound better and better.
Right, white roof agenda.
Now, I love that. I'll put that on a bumper sticker. Now, for those, I loved, and I always glean a lot of information from you every year on hurricane season, but something I'd like for you to hit is timing, right? So like for us, you said last year, I believe it was last year, might have been the year before. Our storms are usually for the Tampa area, right? Our storms are late season storms, usually come from the Yucatan across,
right?
As opposed to the ones like early season are all coming from Africa,
right?
And going up the eastern seaboard, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. When do ours typically start? Probably like September, you would say.
I mean, you watch those tidal waves coming off Africa in September, and if they're tracking pretty far south, they have a chance of hitting Florida. If they're not tracking south, they're pretty much going North Carolina up the coast and stuff. So I look for those tidal waves forming in late August, early September. Nice, slow-moving, very far south, heading south of Cuba, heading south of Puerto Rico, just nice south trend, maybe coming close to hitting Trinidad. Those are the ones we need to worry about going in there. And those September storms are usually massive beasts.
Yeah.
Those are going to be your
Katrinas, your
Ikes, your Katrinas,
Well,
your
we know about
Jeans.
that, right, Pat? We've like literally left on cruises when the storms are rolling in. I don't know how that plan would go this year.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the best place to be if a hurricane's coming is go the opposite way on a cruise ship.
Hop on a
I
ship.
don't know now because they just brought a cruise ship out from Aruba. It left yesterday or the day before on its way to San Martin, and 2 people on it had COVID.
Oh gosh.
Figured.
Here we go.
And then in October, what you end up having is the water in the Gulf is warmer, so you get these storms forming off the Yucatan and just going straight up and over. They're fast-moving, fast-forming, stronger, smaller storms.
Well, the music means we have to roll to a break. So when we come back, we'll talk about what to do if there is a necessary evacuation, right? Because we don't spend enough time on that. And what to do to plan and prepare your home and yourself for the storm season when we come back. Our off-air number, if you want to connect with myself, Leo, Adam, or any of our guests, is 813-377-2775, 813-377-2775. We'll be right back.
And welcome home. This is Tampa Home Talk, and we're talking all about hurricanes today, getting you ready for hurricane season, which officially started on June 1st, but as we've been discussing, our active season is still a few months away here. So, Leo, why don't you, other than prepping on the insurance side, you want to make sure that A, your coverage is in force. Now would be a good time to double check that. And B, as we discussed last week, when it comes to flood insurance, if you're not in a mandatory flood zone, right, flood insurance is pretty cheap or inexpensive relative to what it would cover. But there's a 30-day waiting period. So hopefully we start getting some more rain. I know that's our afternoon pattern here starts pretty soon.
It's been a little weird this week. We've gotten the rain, but it's been heavier and longer and a little later than normal.
Yes, and spotty, right? It hasn't been full coverage area necessarily. So some people have green yards and some people still have deserts backyard. But if you see that water pooling on your street and we're this early into the season, now would be a good time to get that looked at.
So I would say basically one of the more important things this year, like we learned last year with COVID when people bought truckloads of toilet paper for their house.
Yes.
I think usually it's prep the emergency kit. We say you need to do that, but we don't really kind of push it. I think this year, if anything, because of the shortage of supplies, because of the shortage of what's out there, prep your emergency kit now.
Yes. And what do you put in your emergency kit?
Well, well, mine has tequila.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to have
And so we got flashlights, a portable radio,
batteries for
batteries,
some batteries,
extra batteries. I have a lot of rechargeable batteries around the house, and make sure they're charged.
Yes.
Non-perishable food. Bottled water, cash.
Yes. So and fill up your car with gasoline.
Oh yes, that's something you should do. Like anytime they say a storm is due within 5 days,
fill it up.
I make sure my car is basically 3/4 to full each day, because if you run out of gas, I mean, we've had several instances this year where Texas froze, a gas pipeline broke, There's been gas shortages this year.
And if there's no power, the pumps don't work.
Well, yeah.
That was where I was getting, because I've so back in these 04, 05 storms that we were all talking about, there was a storm that came through. I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the ones that kind of crisscrossed the state. And they still held an AAU baseball coaches meeting in Orlando. So my dad and I went to the meeting, and then we went, a little bit more of a Chuck Tally back way through the middle of the state, trying to avoid the traffic on I-4 from everybody going back to Tampa after the storm passed. And we went through some of these nowhere towns with one gas station, got stuck.
Pretty much.
We ran out of gas, and nobody had power. So think about that. That's a big one. Yeah.
So make sure your car is full. Keep it full going into a storm. Fuel shortages, plywood shortages. You're going to hear about it from the regular TV media when storms are coming. Can't find plywood. I mean, we've been preaching that for 6 months.
Yeah.
Building supplies are low. Plywood is a building supply.
If you have pets, extra pet food.
Extra pet food. I make my own pet food, so
there you go.
Make my own.
One of my favorite ones from years past that you've mentioned is bacon.
Bacon. I was going to say bacon and roasted garlic. So with bacon, you can make bacon, and it does not need to be refrigerated.
Yes.
So you can do roasted garlic. You can do bacon. You don't have to be eating trail mix for days on end.
Yes. Along those lines. So before I say this, let's back up. What's the longest you've been without power during one of these storms?
Working a storm or my house?
Your house. Your residence.
8 hours.
Okay, so not too bad.
Yeah.
So,
but now ask me the other question.
Well, I haven't gotten there yet. So, this is, I want to keep it local because, as we discussed, we haven't really had the big one come, but it still can be damaging. So, when I was growing up, again, same time, little time frame, different storm, obviously, because we got a more direct hit. We lived down at the end of a no outlet street, right? So way back down by the Alafire River, one way in, one way out.
Oh, you can be looking like 2-3 weeks.
2-lane road, right? 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we were living at my grandparents' house for 2 weeks. Thankfully, I had grandparents that are local, and we could do that. But imagine not having power for 2 weeks.
I can, because working storms, I've been with 3 weeks without power.
And think about camping for 3 weeks, right?
Pretty much.
It's pretty crappy.
You've got to make sure you have. This is something most people don't think about, but one of the most important pieces of your emergency kit, and it's not even on this list, is a can opener.
Yes, a can opener.
Can opener. That is the thing you need the most. It's not even on this prep and emergency kit that I'm reading right now. You need to have a can opener.
Well, where I was going to go with it was a charcoal grill.
That's also
or
important.
A propane grill or something like. So I have a Traeger, right?
Well, that's
not going to work because it needs electricity. So I have a backup one from camping that we keep stocked with stuff just in case.
And I will say, a grill is a luxury item.
It is,
because when I was 3 weeks plus, I've done storms with 2-3 weeks would be the norm for not having electricity or power. If you have a can opener, warm food is a luxury. I mean, there are chili products, there are canned vegetables. You can get food in your system that is ready to eat out of the can that you don't need to cook.
My theory is people staying close, right?
Yeah.
Close to home. You're still in your house. I've never seen a Publix that didn't have a generator, so you're probably going to be able to access food. Just might not have a way to cook it.
Yeah, but along those lines, because I've been in these towns that have been direct hits, and remember, Tampa really hasn't had a direct hit since Donna in 1966. I've been in these towns that have had direct hits where the Publix line to get in basically looks like a communist bread line. So you got to keep that in mind. Think about last year, those lines at Home Depot, where it took a contractor 4 or 5 hours just to get in to Home Depot. That is the kind of lines you see at a Publix, at a Walmart, on a direct hit town from a hurricane. Mm-hmm. That's why it's important to have these supplies on hand, have your toiletries, have your clothing, have a shelter room set out in your house if you're not evacuating. That's a room with no windows. That's a room like you can board yourself up in. Closets are good. Other things that you need to do and think about is clean your bathtub and then fill your bathtub with water. Mm-hmm. That way, if there is no power at the local power plant, or you got a boil water notice, but you have no electricity to boil water, at least you have a source of water for flushing your toilet. That's what that bathtub water is for. It's to put in your toilet tank. It's to be able to flush the toilet when you use it.
To wash your hands, any type of basic water.
Yeah, basic water needs. So that's stuff to do like week of, but right now, secure your exterior. Tree trimming is important.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing I would say, make sure you have window coverings.
Window
make
coverings.
Sure if you don't have shutters, you have.
Go up if it's a newer home, go up in the attic. Make sure they left them there for you.
If it's a newer home, you got them. Or you have
well,
impact resistant
depends on,
windows.
right?
I hope they're not putting the storm shutters in the attic. How are you going to get those in and out of hatches? They're usually in the garage.
They're in the garage.
They're easily in the garage. Mm-hmm. Unless you're talking about the metal ones that are.
The metal ones are still in the garage.
Yeah, I wouldn't want them in the. But little things you need to do, like check wall hangings and art around your house. Make sure they're secured to the wall. Make sure you know where you're going to park your car. I mean,
the car is a big deal.
This was a big thing on going back to Hurricane Irma and Pine Island and the Keys. They basically parked their cars on those overpasses, the highest points on the island.
So they didn't flood. Didn't get ruined.
So so secure your exterior. You got to make sure you get your tree trimming done. Make sure that if a storm's coming, some people throw their lawn furniture in the pool, which is actually a good move if you have a pool.
Or strap it down.
Strap it down. Make sure your air conditioners are strapped down. I mean, we look for it in home inspections, but those little pieces of metal that look like an L, having four.
They're there not just to thwart thieves, right?
Yes, having 4 of those can prevent a $7,000 expense after a storm. So these are all things you need to be doing.
Did we talk about all of the stuff to get from the store, right? You talked about water.
Yeah, we talked about all of that.
You know what we did not talk about?
Making sure you have insurance?
Well, we did talk about that.
That was what we started with.
But we didn't talk about doing a little bit of an inventory of what you have inside your house.
Oh, you should do a picture. Would
a video count?
A video would count. You want to make sure that you want to make sure that whatever you're getting, so especially if it's an electronic device, something like that, get the serial numbers. Those are important. They can tell anything from that, right? But it's hard to if you have a TV in the corner, to be like, oh yeah, that looks like a 48-inch, Sony.
That's where replacement actually comes in handy.
Exactly.
So that is important. I usually do an inventory once a year. I take about 250 pictures around the house.
Put it in the cloud. Cloud's not going anywhere.
Because you don't know.
What do you do when you do an inventory, Leo? What kind of things do you take a picture of? Like, walk us through what you're doing in your house.
So I will walk into every room and take at least 6 pictures. I will take one. I'll stand in a corner and take a picture of an opposite corner, and I'll do that in all 4 corners. I'll take one of the ceiling, one of the floor. Then I will take pictures of individual pieces of furniture. I'll take pictures of serial numbers and model numbers. And some people say, hey, I'll just do a video. It's faster. Yeah, a video is faster, but insurance companies don't accept videos. They want pictures because they're underwriters and even the inspectors. Like when I get called in and someone's like, I have a video of all my possessions. I don't want to watch an hour video. I want to quickly scan through 150 pictures. And that's the way these
just go do.
And that's the way these insurance companies are. So I'll take all those pictures, each room systematically through the house. I'll take a series of pictures of the outside.
So don't make like the MLS and go from the kitchen to the backyard.
Yeah.
Like stay in order.
Stay in order. And then I'll take pictures on the outside. I'll take pictures of the roof. So if a storm comes through, I have documentation from beforehand. And then I'll have documentation after. I do the same thing after the storm, to the outside at least, to see what happened. And that helps with your claims because you can say, here's what my house looked like before the storm. Here's what it looks like right after the storm. That's hard to refute.
All I know is my garage will be empty sooner rather than later if we have a storm rolling in because I am not leaving my car outside during a storm.
Yeah.
That'll be a fight in my house.
Hey, no.
So that's
Get
something.
your spring cleaning done.
Yeah. So that's something you can do with the pictures to help with your insurance claim. But wall art, hangings, these are things that really should come down. Don't leave the $10,000 painting up on the wall on the small little hook. Take it down.
Yeah.
$10,000 painting is not on a small little hook. I'm just saying.
It might be bolted to the house if it's
Not on a
$10,000.
small little hook. It's like
Well,
severe.
the other thing that surprisingly,
Where do you put your Muldoons or your Wylands?
I don't have either one of those.
I don't either, but
I was going to say people also forget to insure their toys. You know, especially if they paid cash for them or they're done paying for them. You know,
we'll have to talk about
Well.
insuring toys when we come back from break at 813-377-2775. That's 813-377-2775. I think that's a great topic
You
to come back to.
insure toys and artwork?
yes.
All right, we'll talk about it when we get back.
Welcome home. Leo Kane here with Beryl Engineering and Inspection, joined with Adam Talley for your hurricane preparedness episode hour.
I love it. It's my favorite time. It's my favorite one of the year.
So explain more about the difference between, because I have homeowner's insurance, so that doesn't protect my quote-unquote artwork and toys?
There's going to be limitations on the artwork for sure. So if you open up your policy, there's sublimits built in, right? So, and what that says is they're not going to pay over, let's say $1,500 for any jewelry item. So if you have a lot of jewelry, you
My
want a separate
wife's
policy.
wedding ring is more than that.
Right. Most people's are. So when
It's actually I didn't pay that much, but they gave me a certificate saying that.
Fair enough. Well, there you go. And jewelry is a little different because you'd probably put that in a box and keep that safe yourself. But aside from that, we do have a separate jewelry policy that's very inexpensive compared to scheduled personal property. But scheduled personal property is where you'd be putting that artwork.
Okay,
right?
so artwork, boats, cars.
You want to make sure that those are insured.
Own policy. What
Yes.
are toys then? So what
Toys are the they're the golf carts that you may have. They're the boats would be a toy. Jet skis are toys. Motorcycles are toys. There's no requirement that you have to have insurance for any of those things.
I'm just confused. Wouldn't it be easier to just kind of contact your local Adam Talley to have a review of the policy?
It would be easier to text 813-377-2775 and let me do that for you.
Yeah, find out if you have. Do you do that on intake? Do you ask the questions of, hey, do you have this kind of other extra stuff around your house?
We try. Yeah, we try. Most of the people that have the very expensive stuff ask the question for you. How do I insure this, right? Or I have this insured on my current policy. I need to make sure it's also covered here. So it's the new people, or they're moving, or maybe they're from a different state and things are different here, and that kind of stuff. That's where you really want to catch.
What
it.
about my gun collection? Is that covered under normal or?
Same thing. There's a sublimit. However, you can also schedule your guns on the policy, and there's two different rates. There's some for just show pieces, and there's a rate for ones that you use. So we can cover it either way.
And that makes sense because there are some antiques that are guns that are never actually meant to be used.
They're not going to be, it's probably more likely to blow your hand off than shoot it forward. So that's, yes, we can insure those as well.
Shoot it forward. Is that like the new version of pay it forward?
I don't know, but I like that. We coined it here first.
Shoot it forward.
Shoot it forward. Just shoot that stuff. But yeah, so I mean, you just, a good summer inventory of all those things and of your insurance policy is good, right?
And I think in conjunction with Leo's technique of taking pictures around the house, because you don't realize what's changed. And I'm just now thinking in my house, all the things that have changed between last year and this year.
Right.
I need to do that inventory again. The wife's gone crazy.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do it too.
Yeah. Your wife's gone crazy.
Well, she's gone crazy. According to my neighbors, she drives a little crazy.
There's Girls Gone Wild, which is some sorority girl thing back in the day. And now there's Wives Gone Wild, which is
Wild.
You have all this new furniture and all these new wall hangings you didn't know about.
It's an Amazon effect here, but yeah, those things are important. Save your receipts for the big stuff.
Oh, definitely.
Most of them, those are digitalized now, anyways. So, when you go to Costco, when you upgrade your entire appliance package, those things are important, right? And those things are expensive, so you want to make sure you're getting there's no limit on that stuff. So, but you also want to make sure when you're doing this inventory that the biggest thing to me would be make sure the policy is in force and that it's paid in full, right? if you are on some sort of, if you don't have a mortgage or you're not escrowed and you pay it yourself, I would want to double check and make sure that it's there. And if you have a mortgage, I would also double check and make sure that the policy is in force and that it's been paid in full, especially if you have one of these summer month renewals, which a lot of people do because that's when they bought their house, because everybody moves over the summer because that's when kids are out of school. You'll get these mortgage companies that didn't get filed properly or processed properly, or they send the checks out slow, that type of stuff. You want to make sure you're on top of that, because if some sort of lapse happens while a storm's out there, we can't do anything for you.
Well, aren't the insurance companies required to send you out notices if you're going to be dropped due to non-payment?
They are. But a lot of people don't open their mail, unfortunately. They think it's spam or it's just some other letter, or they don't read it. They open it and they don't read it.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. I get a lot of mail that I just don't read.
Exactly. So,
I'm pre-approved for a lot of stuff.
Me too, buddy. Me too. Low interest rate, 0% on a balance transfer.
I don't read them that that much in depth.
It's on the envelope now. That's how they get you.
I love
to open it.
I love the prospectuses. Like I have a 401k, and then they're like the prospective will occasionally show up. I don't need that.
Yes.
It's like a phone book. I'm like,
I get that.
Instantly trashed. I'm
Yes.
like, stop printing these.
Yes, please save the trees.
Not that. I know they're charging me for it on the back end.
I'm charging you for everything. 1%. That's what they make. But anyways, God, I lost my train of thought there.
Sorry, I'm good at that.
That's okay.
So make a plan. Secure your exterior.
Yes.
Make sure you have some kind of storm shutters. Check and insure your wall hangings and arts and toys.
Check your insurance.
Check your insurance.
15-day notice. That's what I left off there. The cancellation notice is 15 days. So if you get that letter, you get 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Don't assume that the mortgage company has the check on the way, etc. Your mortgage, one of the biggest problems we see, and this is just good advice regardless of the season, if your mortgage gets bought out, you need to call your insurance agent. Okay? The mortgage company should be sending a letter out to them. They should want to get that updated. They should be sending it to the carrier. These things don't always happen. So if your mortgage gets bought out, you need to call your agent and make sure the new mortgage company is on there. Because what's going to happen is if they don't send that letter to the agent or the carrier and you don't alert anybody, when you get to your renewal, the new company's not going to know that you have insurance. They're not going to send the check out, and you're going to have a lapse in coverage. So 100% number one advice, pay attention to letters from your mortgage company and pay attention to letters from your insurance carrier.
Which is tricky because if your mortgage company's been bought by another mortgage company, you might not recognize the name on the company of the letter that you're supposed to pay attention to.
Correct. Yes. So, yeah, it's gone. So anyways, yes, check your mail. Read your mail, please. That's like the biggest thing. Because we could go, I think I got a letter. Well, you got the final cancellation, so I'm assuming that the mailing address was correct on the first notice that they sent you. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's about a wrap.
Katrina's back.
Yeah,
Katrina's
you're
been
back.
gone.
Welcome.
Been in and out.
Yeah, so we I think we covered enough to get our listening audience pretty prepped for hurricane season.
Yes, and to scare them about a mortgagee change.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, that's exciting. Well, we had a change-a-roo of guest or two, but we'll talk about that in hour number 2 at 9 o'clock. And our off-air number is 813-377-2775. If you've got any questions about the hurricane prep, or more importantly, the insurance, call or text 813-377-2775, 813-377-2775. We'll be back for hour number 2.